Chapter 8. The Car Crash That Made Me Fall in Love Again. And now I arrive at the very recent past, the part of my life that led me in here. From this point on, my downfall began. I still haven't spoken about my work, perhaps intentionally. I always wanted my attention to remain focused on my family. The notary office was doing well. I was making money. I owned property, shares, and an immense loneliness. The only person who was truly mine, Aris, was always by my side. He was my man. I didn't mind that he bluntly pointed out my mistakes. He was someone who had an opinion about everything. He gave me courage whenever I needed it, reassured me about the right decisions I made, and above all, with his humor, he tried to make me see life from a different perspective. The notary office I inherited from my father, my choice of profession was not a coincidence, was located in the center of Athens, on Emanuel Benaki Street. Themistocles Alexiou, my father, had many clients and a very good reputation. For purely emotional reasons, I never moved the office. After renovating it, I found great pleasure in driving the Marousi-Athens route with my car, even under the terrible traffic conditions of the avenue. Besides, ever since I was a young boy, I had always had a very good relationship with cars. They were my only escape from Nina's oppression. And so, even now, I maintained that habit, making the same route every day, always following the same course with almost ritualistic pleasure.
"Strange kind of masochism," Eris would comment. "You have so many ways to get to the office, and yet you insist on wasting your time and patience in that bottleneck you go through every day. What can I say? You get what you deserve. Your head, your hat." He was repeating Nina's words, but he was right. He was right then, and much later too. The only difference was that when the later finally came, my mind was already on the verge of breaking. But whoever understood loneliness, as my late mother used to say, was a bad advisor. I knew that very well, yet apparently I had never truly absorbed it.
"You're exhausting yourself for nothing," my dear Ergiro, my assistant and right hand, would tell me every day. A waste of time. She knew her words were falling into a void, that I was stubborn as a mule, yet she never grew tired of repeating them. My relationship with her was purely professional. Even though she was over 40, despite everything, I never looked at her that way. Sometimes I had invited her out for lunch, usually on days when, after finishing work, neither of us had anything else to do until the office reopened in the afternoon. We would go to a small taverna near Exarchia and discuss office matters and generally the various cases that occupied us. Argiro was also divorced and disappointed by her marriage. Unlike me, however, she had a cheerful personality and faced life's setbacks with humor and optimism. Her presence in the office was truly essential to me. What would I have done without her all this time I've been here? We would go to a small taverna near Exarchia and discuss office cases and, in general, anything else that concerned us regarding work. That morning, on my way to the office, I realized that my day had started badly. Driving down Kifisias Avenue through unbelievable traffic, although I was practically at a standstill, I heard a dreadful noise, and before I could even understand where it had come from, I felt a shove forward that pressed me against the steering wheel. I got out of the car while at the same time the driver of the vehicle behind me, which had crashed into mine, made a gesture of despair that, given the nerves I already had, struck me as incredibly comical. "Madam, where are you looking when you drive?" I asked her. "Oh, whatever I say, you're right," she stammered, almost in despair. I looked at the rear bumper, which had caved in slightly. And while I was preparing myself to say everything the situation called for, I saw her crying. I was speechless, another thing I hadn't expected. "Please," I caught myself saying, "don't cry. There's no reason for it. These things happen." She was beautiful. She was around Diana's age, and that made me look at her with tenderness, almost smiling.
"My insurance will compensate you," she said, while at the same time taking out of her car all the necessary information she had to give me. The drivers behind us had already begun honking, and I motioned for her to pull over with me onto the side road so we could exchange the necessary details. In truth, I wasn't interested in the formalities at all. I simply wanted to learn more about her. Something had awakened inside me. I don't know exactly what had happened. That girl had made me feel that click I hadn't felt in years. She had captivated me at first sight. We exchanged details, phone numbers, insurance information, and everything else the situation required. My car had suffered minimal damage, and even though it did have a few scratches, at that moment, the only thing that concerned me was her. After the formalities, she got ready to leave. And then I found the courage, or rather the audacity to say it better, and I asked her, "Would you perhaps like to have a coffee so you can calm down a little?" I had work waiting for me at the office, but suddenly I felt that everything could wait. She politely accepted. I must admit that her decision surprised me. We ended up at a cafe in Sihiko. The first thing I did was inform Argiro that I would be late because something had come up. In the end, my day was not as bad as it had seemed at first.
Katerina Flora, that was her name, was slightly older than Diana, while I was separated, though not divorced yet, and utterly alone. What difference did the presence of Eris and Argiro make to me? They were now the two closest people in my life. The loneliness I felt whenever I returned alone to the house in Marusi at night was unbearable. When I put the key in the door, the empty rooms seemed to fall on top of me. Everywhere I went, everything felt emptier without Diana. Every time I entered her room, I would turn on the light and glance around to reassure myself that everything was still exactly as my daughter had left it when she moved away. Her books, her computer, her dolls, she had left them all behind, still scattered across the top shelf of her bookcase. I would turn off the light, and it felt as though I were saying goodnight to my child who was far away. My only comfort were the moments when I managed to communicate with Diana through the computer. To see her, to have her see me, to talk like we used to, as father and daughter. What would have become of me if all this had happened a few years earlier, before technology had brought us closer? But let me return once again to beautiful Katerina, who entered my life at the most suitable moment. Petite, sensitive, full of life, she reminded me of the time when I was with Daphne. I was returning to the past, and I liked that. As the years go by, memories from the past tend to become sweeter. Let it be said, I got carried away. So I was speaking about the melancholic angel whose presence had come to upturn everything in my life. I liked the woman I had just met very much, in a very strange way. What I'm about to say may sound trivial, but I realized it was mutual. For a moment, I thought about the difference in our ages. She could easily have been my daughter. But my mind quickly brushed the thought aside and focused on her beautiful yet intriguing company. The moment we sat together at the cafe, facing one another, talking as though no one else existed around us. Who could have imagined that a relationship had already begun, one that would prove decisive for both of us? That coffee had started early in the morning, and by the time it was already noon, it still hadn't ended. We arranged to meet again that same evening. It was incredible how beautiful I felt when I was with her. When I returned home, as I never went to the office at all, I immediately called Eris and told him about the incident. "Are you crazy? Completely insane? Fine, but what about your child? What are you doing?" "I don't care," I told him, and I meant it. For the first time, I, Pavlos Alexiou, did not feel the familiar insecurity. On the contrary, I felt an overwhelming certainty, anticipation.
"You're going to get hurt again," Eris said. "The girl is much younger. Sooner or later she'll get bored and leave, and you'll end up alone." "And you, who don't do any of this, you're not alone?" I asked him. "The bachelor life is my choice, old friend," he replied. "I can't keep comforting you for the nonsense you get yourself into. I'm tired of it. Pull yourself together." I had decided to live, to do something completely different from everything I had done until then. Meeting Katerina had shaken me. The time had come to warm up. I, the cold, the introverted one, the bohemian, the soft man. I waited impatiently for the hours to pass until our evening rendezvous. It wasn't as if I were a teenager, yet growing older terrified me. I liked the idea of feeling in love again. I had started believing that this kind of emotion was a luxury for me now, a forbidden luxury. To feel this way for a woman who could have been my daughter in terms of age, not even in my sleep had I dared to dream something like that. I began going through my wardrobe to find something impressive, something that wouldn't make our age difference so obvious, believing perhaps that appearance still mattered. I felt young, exuberant. I was experiencing the trembling excitement of adolescence I had never truly had the chance to live when I should have. Little by little, I remembered all the women I had fallen in love with. I stopped at those who had returned my feelings. Daphne had been the first woman I truly liked. I had loved Daphne with all the passion and innocence of youth. I loved Marina with a mature mind, not recklessly, yet I did love her. Over time, love became habit, then indifference. We left it there, and so we had every reason to remain united, loving each other, our child, our shared life. But with Katerina, what was I really asking for? I would say that I wanted to live a forbidden love, and for that reason I moved forward without ever imagining the consequences. I kept trying to convince myself that our age difference wasn't important. After all, I wasn't the first or the last. I brought to mind famous couples like Charlie Chaplin or Woody Allen, and many others I won't mention now, and this gave me the courage to move on without guilt. But these things don't happen every day, only to the very fortunate, and fate, even if late, had finally smiled at me. "Please, give me some water," I asked many. I felt my mouth go dry. I drank the water she gave me and lay down. I felt exhausted. My exhaustion was psychological. Many understood. Silently, she tucked the blankets around me and wished me good night. "Tomorrow again," she said. "Yes, tomorrow." She closed the door behind her. I was left alone with my thoughts. I had turned my life upside down. I had endangered my mental health, and in the end I had found myself here where I am now, without having anyone truly mine beside me. My daughter was far away, my wife gone. Truly now, what did I have left? These were the questions that tormented me before I finally fell asleep. The medication they gave me made both the pain and the memories fade. Sleep was calm, dreamless. The following afternoon, Miney brought me pink roses. They reminded me of Diana's graduation ceremony. She placed them in the vase and once again took her place near the window with the laptop in front of her. I had to shorten my narration. The day of my discharge was already just around the corner. "We're not in a hurry," many told me. "We'll continue at your house." I smiled. My house, how much I've missed it. Anyway, I began dictating again, reliving all the events one by one. My memory had recorded every detail, important and insignificant alike. That same evening, I met Katerina again. We went to a wonderful restaurant with an exquisite and romantic atmosphere. Now I truly understood what it meant to meet a woman who captivates you and completely absorbs you. not only because of the pleasure of the conquest, but simply because you are grateful she exists. I will never forget the details of that first night with Katerina. She spoke beautifully. She was a lawyer, after all, and for the moment I merely listened. Sitting opposite each other at a corner table beneath the dim lighting, there was tremendous chemistry between us. Through the window, we could see the city lights at night. She was wearing a red dress. I still remember her perfume. Her eyes revealed her emotions. Little by little, we discovered one another. The more time passed there, the more silently I observed her, noticing every expression on her face. Delicate skin, no makeup at all, huge eyes with the deep blue of the sea staring at me with admiration. When I spoke, she leaned slightly toward me, as though she were trying not to miss a single word. I felt as if I were dreaming. Candles burned in front of us. Who could possibly erase those moments? I remember her laughter, her reactions to my touch, the intertwining of our fingers. Even our very first contact filled me with incredible emotion. I felt young again, just like then. She lived alone in an apartment in Kolonaki, though in her life there was only her mother, who was a doctor and lived in her own home. My mother divorced my father years ago, she told me. My father remarried. Each of us follows our own path now. She suggested we go to her place for a drink. How differently I thought about things back then. I wanted her, and I was not at all concerned by the fact that only a few hours earlier I had met her. Nor did our age difference seem to matter anymore. I was crazy about her. I didn't dare admit it, even to myself. At times I thought about Diana. I thought about Marina. But very quickly I pushed those thoughts away and imagined myself living with her. I had no other choice. I had crossed the line. Something inside me that had remained dormant for so many years had awakened from its lethargy. I would not return to the emptiness of my life again. Katerina's apartment was beautiful, carefully decorated and tasteful. She made us drinks, and we sat together on the sofa. We talked for hours. Yet none of this truly mattered. Through every word we exchanged, a silent vibration had begun to pass between us. Her touch discreetly during our movements. I didn't want to frighten her, nor did I want her to realize that my mind had already become obsessed. All my senses had awakened. I had never enjoyed a woman's touch the way I enjoyed Katerina's. I wished for those moments never to end. Her body was slender, full of juice, which I devoured with my eyes. "What a woman you are," I whispered to her before we finally made love. I was overwhelmed, yet I had surrendered completely to my feelings. What would Aris say if he saw me? He would never believe it. I felt young and fulfilled once again. Sometimes it takes a crash to change the direction of a life. Not a violent one. Just enough to make us stop, look around, and notice the person standing in front of us. Fate rarely knocks on the door. More often, it gently touches the bumper and waits to see what happens next.